the immediate need to respond to that. That is fantastic. Hello, my name is Ben Paddon. I'll be moderating the panel. This is Midnight Marinara, unless I'm mispronouncing that.
No,
anyway.
It's correct.
Hey, hello.
Hey.
We are actually going to start off by, I believe you have an episode that you're going to play?
Yes. I'm going to share with you all the pilot episode of Midnight Marinara that was done a few years ago. Oh, actually, really quick, how many people have actually heard of Midnight Marinara before? Anybody show hands? Wow. There's a couple of you. That's awesome.
Hands up anyone who is a fan of creepypasta in general. There we go.
There
you go.
All right.
So this is the podcast for you.
Excellent. So we're gonna. Hold on. I'll just take this. So we're gonna do for some of you who are familiar with some of the more weird, like kind of off-kilter humorous creepypasta, we've got a little one for you. We're gonna play right now. So listen up.
God, now? I can't. Give me a sec. I'll be right back. Hello?
What are you doing with my daughter?
Jeez, man, calm down.
What was that?
Oh, weird. I didn't know your dad had my number. You seem pretty mad. What? Why are you shaking?
It couldn't have been him. My dad is dead.
Dad? Then who was phone?
Good evening, intended listeners, and welcome to Midnight Marinara, where we attempt to add a little extra flavor to your favorite creepypasta. I am your humble host here, Maitre D. up in the car, and what you have just heard is only an appetizer for things to come. Expect several choice courses as we serve up appalling adaptation from our own children, and sometimes side-speaking horror. Scavenged from the darkest corners of the internet and cooked to perfection by an expert team of supernatural chefs. Inhumane, reserve your ears for a feast of the sound and sprinkle some of this on your creepypasta come midnight. Bon appetit!
Bone chilling.
Was that cheesy enough for everybody? Perfect.
It's a question for the ages, and we may never know just who was phone. But
If you really think about it, though, there is an easy answer to that question, but I'm not going to tell you. You got to figure it out for your own. Creepypasta is nothing if not challenging, intellectually challenging.
It's definitely challenging, and there may be some intellect. So let's go down the line and introduce everyone. Let's start from the far end and work our way forward.
Oh,
So
we're
just
gonna start.
introduce yourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, hi, I'm Kira. I've done a few voices for these guys.
Oh, Kira's a good friend. A few voices from the guys doesn't even cover the gamut of stuff she's done. I like to joke, if you've been around the internet long enough, you've probably heard her voice on a few things. So I would go into a lot of the credits, but I don't know.
You want to list your credits? I don't think anybody cares if you
Aw.
Please do. Please do.
What's one of your favorite roles, like big roles that you've done?
Hyoko Sayonji from Danganronpa 2.
Ah, yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. And anybody familiar with Skullgirls? Fighting in Skullgirls? The final boss was voiced by this lady. Bloody Marie? Yeah. So there you go. That's one right there. And actually, I saw the Axel World dub for the first time yesterday. And you voiced the one of the main characters in that one, don't you?
Yeah, I made them come and watch it because.
It was really cool, though.
So moving along.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Kaela Berry. I'm the producer for Midnight Marinara.
Hello, I'm David King. I am the creator and sometimes voice of Midnight Marinara.
What's up? I'm Matt Holley. I do voices for Midnight Marinara occasionally. Yeah.
More than
He also looked like he once wants some more of a wild man, like a hermit, or just woodland creature generally.
I prefer Dan Haggerty or Jim Hacksaw Duggan.
And as I've already mentioned, my name is Ben Paddon. I have occasionally done voices for, I think, once or twice now?
At least twice.
At least twice. For Midnight Marinara, and also have my own various online ventures. I did a Doctor Who fan series called Dalek Gary, which I co-wrote and voiced the Dalek for, because I'm British and apparently that's what we're good for. So let's kick things off. Pretty much everyone in this room is going to be familiar with the concept of what creepypasta is, but for those who are here who don't know, which I'm guessing is maybe -3 of you, what is...
There's a hand right there.
There we go. What is a creepypasta?
Where do we want to start?
Just kind of give us like the Cliff Notes version.
I would.
Nutshell that shit.
I'll tell you one thing right now. Creepypasta is not Jeff the Killer.
Oh God.
Thank you. It's not, and if anyone says otherwise, get out.
Well, I actually have a bit of a surprise for you, because we have Jeff the Killer right here. Come on! No,
Okay, well, sometimes it's hard to define creepypasta as a genre. Because I think generally the idea, it's something I toy with a lot. Short internet horror fiction, generally the idea to unnerve and unsettle, sometimes to outright scare, but I kind of like the ones that give you a more just a creepy vibe. That's more of a general definition. Kaela, what do you think creepypasta is?
Well, the term creepypasta comes from copypasta, or copy and paste, where you would just copy a story and paste it. So the idea behind creepypasta, I believe, is to basically make it sound as realistic as possible, like a spooky story you would tell your friend, like, oh, you're not going to believe this supernatural thing that happened to me. It's so weird, and you're not quite sure if it was actually real or not, but it's something very supernatural and disconcerting.
There's a lot of great ones about video games too.
The lost genre episodes.
The lost anything genre is a pretty big one. SpongeBob episodes gone wrong. Pokemon cartridges that give you like seizures because of Lavender Town music. I don't know. There's some.
The Black one was really good before there was actually a Pokemon Black.
Yeah, that's right.
And of course, we all know, if any creepypasta fan would know this, Ben drowned.
I didn't! That is a filthy, slanderous piece of libel. I can swim. Just not right now.
I'm fine. I'm fine with her back.
And of course, there are creepypastas out there with kind of an interactive element as well. Some of them, like Ben Drowned, I think, is one where it was a slow build for a community. So I guess the next question is, Midnight Marinara, you guys do adaptations, performances of various creepypasta. So I guess the starting point is, which ones do you have? What's your selection process? What do you do when you're choosing the creepypasta that you want to perform for an audience?
Well, for one, I have to actually like the story. That's the most important thing. I get people recommending, requesting I do certain stories all the time, and I'll look at them. If I don't like hold it against people if they're fans of something. It's an opinion, But I'll look at it, and if I really like it, if it's a story I really like, then my next step is, first and foremost, find the original creator and then ask them if I can adapt it. It's not just a straight reading. We don't do that here. We do adaptations. So we're taking the original work and giving it our own spin. If the original creator is cool with it, or say the original creator is unknown, I take the unknown as kind of an idea that, okay, well then I can't track them down and the story is open to anybody. So then I use that. But usually I get in contact with the creator and ask them if they can do that. Then the next step is just to try and track down people who can do, who will do voices for it. Pretty much everybody on this panel, myself included, has done voices for this podcast. So that's been pretty cool. I've been extremely lucky in that regard because everybody on this panel is especially talented in that regard. So I am very fortunate. I usually write the script, adapt it, but that takes a little bit. I get in touch with all the people who do the voices, they get that done. And then I sit down and edit it, find as many sound effects as I can, cram it all together, and that's basically the technical side of it.
Okay.
I don't know if you were looking for something more.
Another thing that I even try to look for when I'm reading creepypastas can be adapted to radio theater, because that's the goal of this project too, is to make it sound good. So there's been creepypastas like, yeah, this is really well written, but it's very descriptive, and I like the setting, and that's kind of difficult to present in a radio fashion or a podcast fashion.
Well, it's one of the reasons I could never do Ben Drowned. Ben Drowned is a very visual creepypasta. It's very based on the media surrounding it. A lot of video game pasta are like that. That's why you won't hear a lot of those on my podcast. I've done a couple April Fool's episodes where I've told people, hey, so this episode's coming out, it's going to be Ben Drowned, you've all requested it, and then all of a sudden, whoops, no, it's actually this other thing. So that's kind of the mean thing. I'm very sorry.
Aww.
It's almost the Midnight Marinara equivalent of a Rickroll, because you're promising them one thing.
A little bit. I mean, we're no strangers to love on this show.
Hey, I was talking. You're not supposed to interrupt. Okay, you know the rules, and so do I. So, this is the question for all
The
of you.
full commitment is what I'm thinking of, Ben. I mean, you wouldn't get this from any other guy, right?
Listen, I just want to tell you how I'm feeling. I'm going to make you understand that I have a couple of more questions that I need to ask you.
We'll go for it.
So, from a voice acting perspective, what is, because obviously, and this is obviously a question for all of you, because these are adaptations of pre-existing stories, and you're taking them and kind of reshaping them and turning them into an audio play with a full cast. From a performance perspective, because you are performing a pre-existing story, from a voice acting perspective, what is your approach to reading it? I mean, how many of you guys actually read the original stories beforehand, before you read the scripts? What are your individual approaches? And let's just go down the line.
Yeah, let's do that.
So usually when David wants me to do a voice in this creepypastas, we usually meet up, and he gives me kind of a pitch of what kind of voice he wants, whether he wants like a deeper voice or a more high-pitched voice, and then we kind of test the waters for voice, and then we start rolling lines, and I usually do a couple of takes, make sure we get nice and even. That's about it. Occasionally, like I've had to do lines outside of David's high-tech recording studio. In my own high-tech recording studio, which is a closet.
Nothing but the finest here on Midnight Marinara.
Absolutely. Typically then, I usually just call him up. What kind of voice do you want today, sir? That's usually how it goes. Nothing too exciting. I usually just try to get into character some way, shape, or form.
What? Well, I mean, for someone who's actually writing it, if I have to do a voice in it, it's usually the voice is already in my head. I don't really consider myself a voice actor, though. Not really. I had at one point some aspirations to do it, and then I saw just how much work was involved. I'm like, I'm going to stick to writing.
Not big on effort.
How you have to go through.
No, it's realistic. There's a lot to go through, and Kira can definitely attest to that. I imagine she might give some insight about that a little bit. But for me, it was more like, I have the chops for it, I can do it, but my goal has always been to showcase the work of others in that regard, whether it be creepypasta, or like the authors themselves, or people I know who are voice actors and want to have their, want to get their work out there. And so for me personally, when I'm doing the voice parts, I only have like maybe 1 or 2 roles, and the fun fact is I cameo my voice in just about every episode. If you listen closely, sometimes it's really obvious and sometimes it's really subtle, but my voice is in just about every episode. And depending on how big this gets in the future, I might start dropping trivia. Which 2 episodes was I not in? Something like that. But yeah, my process is really just sitting down, getting set up, and really thinking about how I would have the line delivered, because I usually end up writing it down myself. So.
Similar to David, I'm not a voice actor at all. Like him, I'm better at reading, writing it out. I can adapt and like read something and say, okay, here's how we can adapt to make it sound better. Also, I help him out with like looking for better voice actors than mine. But usually, if there's ever a case where like he'll come to me and say, you know, you do have the voice for this character, you do have the personality for it, try this one. There's only been one time where I hijacked his cameo.
You did.
I did. Because it was actually in the Port Center episode that Ben Paddon is in.
Oh,
Yeah, I hijacked it from him because there was a point, his cameo was supposed to be a, sounds like someone you would call up on the phone and be like, please hold, dude, that sort of voice. And he just wasn't hitting it right. I'm like, David, move aside, let me do this.
She pushed me out of the way like this, and was just like, give me the microphone.
And the reason why is my normal job is working as an administrative assistant / secretary, so I have to be like, hi, how can I help you? Yes, we can do this for you. Oh, absolutely. So, and he's like, okay, yeah, you can do it better than I can. So, and then.
Usually I would just kind of read through the script and get an idea of the character and what kind of personality to do. For the most part, when I've done recordings for Midnight Marinara, it hasn't been anything like too crazy with the voice, because you know, you might imagine like, oh, something really scary or whatever, but most of the time it's like, it's meant to sound like real people in a real situation. So like we were doing one with college students, for example, so obviously you don't want it to sound like super cartoony, you just want it to sound like normal college students talking and getting freaked out and stuff like that. So I think one of the things that I have found interesting about voice acting for Midnight Marinara is the challenge of doing more realistic acting and something that's not over the top and not like cheesy, because a lot of times if you're a character voice actor like I am, you tend to always want to go really big and stuff, but for this type of media that would sound silly and it wouldn't really work. So I record in my living room. My roommate, who did a couple voices on there before, likes to make sarcastic comments whenever I'm recording, so then I got to get her back when she was recording. And sometimes our cats make noise in the background.
You know, it's interesting too, because I wanna hand it to Kira. She can do a really subtle performance, which I really like. There's a level of subtlety to it. So you mentioned the college student one, but there was another one where she had to play sort of a scientist. And in that
was
one,
tough, but I mean, it was a good challenge, a fun challenge.
it was a good one because, like, in the end, you find out these scientists are doing some pretty unethical experiments, but she sounds so friendly and so in control most of the time. And then when the sinister thing comes out, it's still there, but there's a level of menace to it that I really like. So, Jolene is very menacing. You know anything about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Any JoJo people out there? Show hands, JoJo's.
Oh, I do.
Awesome.
Kind of, let's broaden the scope a little bit to creepypasta in general.
Yes.
What is it that you guys think makes people gravitate towards creepypasta, not just want to read, but participate in when there's an interactive element, when it makes them want to write creepypasta? What is it about this whole subgenre of like internet fiction that you think drives people, that pulls people in?
I guess
you can go in whatever order you want for this one. I'm gonna nap.
I actually do kind of have a theory. It's kind of similar. People always have this interest in the unknown and the supernatural. I mean, look at how long Twilight Zone lasted for years. That is also an anthology series, and there's been like 20 million readaptations of that. And it's enjoyable watching. With creepypasta, but it takes it a step further by making it seem realistic. The idea is like, again, someone tells you a scary story that seems uncomfortable or unnatural, but there is a possibility this could happen. Or it could be just in someone's mind, or it's kind of scary. Aww.
I think people like to be scared, and then that element, like, in my opinion, the best creepypastas are the ones where, like, you really feel like it could be real. Like, there's always, you know, like, I think the term they use is suspension of disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, where you're like, on some level, you're like, okay, this is just a story someone wrote, but it's really scary, and I feel like it's real because it could happen. Like, one of my favorite ones, which I mentioned, the Pokemon Black, it's like, you know, somebody goes to a garage sale and gets like this old bootleg cartridge for the Game Boy and everything's like all like messed up and it's like there's products like that exist that are like really weird and creepy in their own ways, and people have done Let's Plays and stuff like
There's
that.
a bad Sonic the Hedgehog hack for the Super Nintendo, like that exists.
Oh yeah.
Sonic Dreams collection.
Sonic Dreams collection is fantastic. You can't tell if it's just like a troll post or if it's creepypasta or both. Like it's got that element, but it's wonderful. I'll tell you what's not wonderful though is Sonic DxD. I have some very strong opinions about creepypasta, which is why, based on that kind of idea, the suspension of disbelief, Jeff the Killer is not creepypasta. Don't get me started.
If you want to hear his complaint on Jeff the Killer, there is a second part of Midnight Marinara called Undercooked Analysis.
We actually cold read creepypasta without a script, without filters, without any plan, and we just talk about it and our reactions to it. And some of them are kind of ridiculous.
Pretty guttural.
The Origin of Laughing Jack episode, I actually had to leave the room because the descriptions got so gory. I was just like, no, thank you.
Thank you.
And this one soldiered on, but
Squidward suicide one.
Oh, Squidward suicide.
Yeah, we did that one. It was fun, but it was also very terrible.
yeah.
That one, oh my goodness.
So, but I just want to say real quick, what I think makes creepypasta work is you gotta, if you're gonna write one, I think the reason people gravitate toward them is like anybody could write them. Anybody could pull it up and write it, and suddenly you might have a hit on your hands, or or maybe it's terrible and no one knows about it. It's either way, it's people tackling fiction, which I fully support. I want people to write more fiction. I want people to enjoy telling stories. The thing with creepypasta, the important thing about creepypasta, if you want to make it good, give it that suspension of disbelief. Go in there, give us some microbial details that seem to be kind of banal and almost pointless for a bit, and then ease us in to the creepy. Because that's the thing, they should unsettle. I think the best kind of creepypastas unsettle and have a grounding in reality. Even the best lost episode in gaming pastas are the ones that are like, dude, isn't that really weird? Like, you can be subtle with it. Glitches and weird cryptic things that shouldn't be in a game. That taps on an idea of nostalgia gone wrong, which I think a lot of us can relate to in some degree, to some degree. The kind that don't work is like, I was playing Pokemon Snap, and then Magmar killed Charmander instead of just making him faint, and then he jumped out of the TV and tried to kill me.
Very subtle, very
That's real, by the way. There's a creepypasta out there that exists like that.
There are several like that.
It's a quagmire. It gets a little bit hard to find good ones to adapt for the show, which is why every so often I just do classic horror literature. Just every so often.
And I think the most successful creepypastas are stuff like, as an example, Candle Cove.
Yes.
The reason Candle Cove is so successful is because it's formatted like a forum post, like a forum thread, a discussion. And it feels very organic and it unfolds, and then you get that punch at the end, and you're like, oh. It's like, it's very unsettling. Now, I know...
Any fans of Candle Cove out there? Awesome. There's a video. Wonderful.
Written by the wonderful Chris Straub, who has a horror webcomic called Brood Hollow, if you're not already familiar with it.
Brood Hollow's great.
Brood Hollow is fantastic. If you like creepypasta and you like the style of writing in Candle Cove, Brood Hollow is definitely worth reading. Now, I know that you guys did an adaptation of Candle Cove. There wasn't so much an adaptation as it was kind of a straight read.
I can explain that one.
Yes.
You see, the thing is, I asked Chris Straub, the creator, if I could adapt Candle Cove. Why are you leaving me?
It's okay. Don't lampshade it. Just keep going. Just keep going. It's good. You've got this.
I asked Chris Straub if he could do it. He said, I would love to. That would be great. I don't have the copyright to it anymore. He had sold it. Which is fair. I totally understand that. So I looked at the story itself and thought, well, the story itself is still out there, like, for free to read. So I figured, if an adaptation is in order, like, I'm just going to do a straight dramatic read instead of that. So I got a bunch of these people together, and we recorded an episode, and just did it straight, like...
Never get asked to do the cool ones.
I should have asked you, because, like you have some connections there. You do. I can't.
Yeah, we're not asking you, we're asking you to get some people to do
You're
it.
asking me to just kind of like harass the rights holders of Candle Cove.
Ben, can you get Chris Straub to do a voice on that?
I'm going to say in front of all of these people that I actually can't make any promises.
That's fine.
The question that I was kind of leading to from there was, are there any other stories that you wanted to adapt but have had difficulty in, like you know who the rights holders, who the author of that story is, but for some reason they don't respond or you can't track them down to contact them?
This is a weird one because it's not necessarily a creepypasta, but anybody familiar with the work of Ray Bradbury? Hands? Yeah. There's a short story of his called The Crowd, and it's one of my favorites, and I think it would be ideal as a radio play. Problem is, there's an estate there, and I would have to give them money, or something along those lines. But I would love it. I would love to adapt anything by Bradbury. So I'm looking into it. One of these days, if things go well with the podcast, I might do Bradbury at some point. And that would be awesome. For now, I stick to creepypasta and public domain.
So, oh no, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was going to say the tricky part is like there will be like great, there will be points. It's like let's try a historical story or like an old-fashioned story, and recruiting is like, yeah, this would be great for adaptation. Is it in the public domain though? And that's the tricky part. It's like there was one story I read and I'm like, oh my gosh, this would actually work great for radio, and the author's still alive, it's still hers, and it's like, it's kind of hard to get permission from her. It's,
yeah.
Especially it was who's the author? It's Joyce Carol Oates.
Oh.
I wanted to get, because I really liked where have you been? Where are you going? I think that would have been a great one, but that's tricky.
So yeah, I don't know if there's much more to be said about that. For me, that's one of the major ones. That's one of my goals, to eventually adapt The Crowd specifically. Although I would love to do for a Halloween special just the Halloween Tree by Bradbury. That would be wonderful. It'd be extra long. It'd be awesome.
So, getting back to Candle Cove, and this is important. Sci-Fi are doing a TV adaptation of Candle Cove.
Yeah, yes,
that's
they are.
happening.
Yeah.
Max Landis is
good
attached.
news.
He's involved. He wrote the screenplay for American Ultra and Chronicle, and he's attached to the project. How do you guys feel as creepypasta has kind of blossomed on the internet over the last, let's say, decade or so, and now it's starting to kind of, its tendrils are starting to creep out Cthulhu-esque into the mainstream.
Spaghetti tendrils. It's like a flying spaghetti monster of evil.
Yes.
Now, how do you guys feel about that? I mean, do you feel like, because, I mean, people as human beings like being scared, do you feel like that's kind of, it's a natural progression for creepypasta to creep out into other media, or do you think that it really just kind of, it belongs on the internet, it belongs to everyone? How do you guys feel about that? And let's actually go down the line again. Let's have Beardy Ron Swanson.
Sure. All right.
You've been giving me the eye all night, dude.
Don't lie. Don't lie, there's something between us.
I should have.
Holy crap. I just want to tell you how I feel. Gotta make you understand. We've known each other for so long.
Yes. I think this as a medium can go for everybody. Like, I dig that it's starting to branch out. It's kind of like, think of comic books and video games. Video games at one point was an item only for kids. It was just to entertain your kids. For the longest time, it was for your kids. But over just long stretches of time, more and more people started to get into it. And now you have the advent of Five Nights at Freddy's, which is getting a movie made, apparently, as far as I know.
No, it's true. They even got the director now.
Yeah, so, holy crap.
I'll be back, I swear.
Like,
Please do.
that
We have
is-
fun things planned.
That kind of encompasses what we're talking about here. It's a creepy game made by, was it Scott?
Scott Cawthon.
Yeah.
Scott Cawthon, who had a genius idea, and it spread really quick. Everybody loves it. Everybody's sharing it. I'm cosplaying one of the characters, and now it's so mainstream. And I like that creepypasta is becoming mainstream because now we have Candle Cove as a show. I would actually like to see how that goes.
I've watched the hell out of that show.
And I don't know what to say to that.
I just like stealing thunder. That's what I do.
Well, now that you have stolen some thunder, what are your thoughts?
So my thoughts are that I think it's a good thing. I think it's important to make sure that people still understand the importance of what creepypasta is, because there's a point where, you know, you look at characters like Slender Man. Slender Man didn't really start out as creepypasta. He kind of got that, and now it's really hard to take Slender Man seriously. You see the humor there, people making parody and stuff like that. And it's like that thing where if a good creepypasta still maintains sort of a level of to use a wrestling term, kayfabe to the whole thing, like they don't break that sort of idea, like, no, this is real. And people who are hip to it go, yeah, this is real, and just roll with the idea. That's where the internet works for creepypasta. That's the big strength of it. That being said, I think it's really cool to see that kind of storytelling now coming to bigger mediums, and that makes me really excited to see where it's going to go.
It's tough to say with is creepypasta getting bigger, and I mean I already consider creepypasta huge, but I consider it in the same level that movies were at when they first came out. Kind of like everybody's like, oh my gosh, it looks great on the big screen, but it didn't have that same serious effect that it does now. And it's the same, and I think video games are going through that process right now. Like, it still has this idea of it still being childish, and I think eventually video games will be considered art. I think the same thing with creepypasta. Eventually, I mean, not all creepypasta is kind of like, not all literature is going to be considered art. I don't see Twilight ever becoming considered art in the future. I'm sorry. No, please, never. No, but I can sort of see some creepypasta eventually being considered art in the future, just as I see video games becoming art in the future, and same with how movies eventually became considered art.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you have anything that you're a fan of, and it's kind of like, you know, it's almost like this cool little secret club that you're in a way, and then it gets like really popular and blows up, and they start having shirts of it and movies or merchandise or whatever. It's like, on one hand, it's like, oh, this is kind of cool. This thing that I love is like getting more recognition, and there's more people who like it. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, it almost becomes like diluted. Like, I guess I use the example, like, say there's an internet meme or something that like you and other people on the internet think is like really funny or whatever, and then it starts getting on like shirts at Hot Topic, and people's grandmothers start sharing it on Facebook and stuff. You're kind of like, okay, this meme is like officially dead. You know
when a meme is dead when it appears on the Denny's Tumblr page.
And it says some the movie with a Denny's sign on it. I followed it.
Now, I know that we're at about a half an hour. By the way, just in terms of the kayfabe comment and in terms of that suspension of disbelief, I just decided, while you were talking, I typed Candle Code into Google, and the 4 autocomplete options are Candle Code Wiki, Candle Code TV show, Candle Code episodes, and is Candle Code real? Which I think kind of that, I really think that the way that people kind of process creepypasta is a really good creepypasta like Candle Code. People think, wait, is this a real conversation, or did someone write this? And I think that's the really good creepypasta kind of seep into your head and kind of leave you wondering whether that's a genuine recollection of an event that happened, or whether it's a fabrication. I think that is the strength of a really, really good creepypasta.
Definitely.
Now, did you, I know what the time frame is, but I know that we're doing
yes,
one thing.
We have, if we can, I mean, I know you might have a couple more.
Actually, one of the things I was going to do before we did that, if time permitting, I thought we could open it to questions from the audience if anyone's particularly interested. Unless you want to.
I think we should go through do our surprise first,
okay,
and then we can open it to Q&A.
Okay, sure.
We're going to do a live read for you. Thank you. So those of you that stuck around, thank you. This is the part you've been.
Come in by the door. Come on. Don't be shy. Or do be shy. Do what you want. Don't let other people tell you what to do. Be your own person.
Yes.
You do.
I have a question. Would you ever adapt or change a little bit of the Harbinger experiment?
You know, I get that request a lot. I'd have to look into it again. As it stands, I'm a little dubious about the Harbinger experiment, but we can get to that in Q&A. Like, honestly, I'll frame it a certain way if people want to ask me questions. But yeah, we have a little bit of a live read for you here, and I actually think it's appropriate we're doing this at a convention that has to do with the celebration of Japanese pop culture, because this is a story set in Osaka, Japan, and it's called Ability. So I'm going to pass this over to my esteemed team of voice actors here, and we'll get this started. Kaela, would you like to open it?
All right. Our story begins in a subway station in Osaka. Sam is relatively new to life in Japan, but seems to be adapting.
Sorry, that got too loud.
Oh, Jesus.
I just wanted to see background music. There we go. Keep going.
Alright. But seems to be adapting well. Sam often takes the subway to work in the morning, and this morning is no different. Well, almost no different.
Good morning.
Ah, good morning, Sam. You're here early. How's life treating you?
Not too bad, can't complain. Figure I'd, get out of my apartment, maybe kill some time before the train comes.
Oh, well, I welcome the company. I do find it a little odd you've come here to kill time, though.
Well, admit, I've been trying to figure something out. Pig! There he is, just like I thought.
Who, that homeless man?
That's right. Did you hear him just insult that fat woman that walked by? He called her a pig.
Yes, I've seen him before. He comes through here every so often begging for money.
Yeah, I heard him a couple of days ago muttering as people went by, and I've been trying to figure him out. I mean, he insults people, and he still expects them to give him money.
It's strange. Here, let's see if he says anything to that businessman going by.
Human! Human? Human? That's new. I can't argue with that, though. I mean, obviously the guy is human.
He really makes no sense, honestly. Most people just ignore him.
That's understandable. He's not going to make much money that way.
Cow!
Alright, I'm just confused now.
About what?
He just called that skinny, haggard-looking man a cow. He looks more like a chicken or a turkey to me.
Potato!
And there, that fat man just now, I assumed he called fat people pigs.
There's no real rhyme or reason to him, Sam. He's crazy. Just stands around with his cup and mutters or calls out random nonsense to people. It's not worth bothering over.
It doesn't bother me. I just, I find it odd.
Like I said, he's crazy.
Rabbit!
No, I mean, there's definitely some weird system or pattern to what he's saying. I can't figure it out.
Were you just so bored that you wanted to figure this out?
No, I mean, look, I just have this hunch. I've been forming it since I last saw the guy.
Onion.
See, that doesn't mean anything.
But, see, I'm starting to think that it does. He was doing the same thing when I saw him before, and I thought it was just insult, but he seems to be doing it fairly deliberately, but the answers don't line up to be just ridicule. I think he might have some kind of power, some psychic ability.
Now you're the one who sounds crazy.
Sheep.
See, just give me a chance. It seems random, but I have a theory that he can tell what people were in their past lives, like reincarnation. That's why he says such random things to people as they pass him.
Tomato.
Okay, then why not go over and ask him?
What? No, I couldn't do that, no.
Why not? You could stand here with me and speculate forever, or you could go ask him yourself. And you could put a little money in his cup. It's the least you can do for him giving you a little entertainment. What's the worst that can happen? You look stupid?
Alright then, I will. Watch me.
Red!
Here you go, sir. So, listen, I've noticed you were saying some odd things to people as they go by, me included, and I was wondering, do you have some sort of psychic ability?
Yes indeed. I do have a psychic ability. It is an ability I obtained years ago, but it is not what you might expect. I can't tell the future or read minds or anything like that.
What is your ability?
The ability to merely know the last thing somebody ate.
Yeah, that makes sense. I get it now. Thanks for clearing that up. You have a good day.
McDonald's.
Well, what did you find out?
I was right, he has an ability, but it's to know the last thing someone ate. He said bread as I came up and I had toast this morning. So.
Really? That's his power?
Yeah, I mean, of all the psychic abilities someone could have, that must be the most useless.
And now the question is, intrepid listeners, do you believe in horror at first sight? Or should we have a certain businessman walk by again?
Human!
Dun, dun, dun.
much. That was fantastic, you guys. And I just want to say, that is in my opinion, one of the finest examples of fridge horror I've come across. If anyone doesn't know the genre, fridge horror is something that gets dropped earlier in the story. There's an anticlimax at the end, and it takes you a little bit to think about it. You go, oh no. All right, so do we...
do we want to open up to questions from the audience?
Let's open up for questions.
But
I
have a question? Yeah, absolutely, over here.
I want to caveat this with one thing. If you ask a question, first and foremost, tell me what one of your favorite creepypasta is, if you have one, when you ask a question. So... I just want to know.
Made a terrible mistake.
My favorite creepypasta is Laughing Jack.
That's fair.
That's fair.
I wanted to ask, what is one of your favorite stories that you've read?
What is one of your favorite stories that you've read?
On the show or just in general?
Just in general.
In general.
All right.
Should we go down the line?
Let's go down the line.
Just start with me. One of the reasons I like Candle Cove so much is that slow build towards that just the way it turns at the end. It's like there's something sinister about that, and it's also the way that has kind of proliferated on the internet to people pretending, oh yeah, I used to watch Candle Cove all the time, and the way that people have played with the idea. I absolutely love that, and the fact that it's Chris Straub, it was his first foray into writing creepypasta, and he just wanted to see if he could, and it's become this massive thing, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Your turn.
So one of my favorite things in literature is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. That's a scary
That's the
story.
original sci-fi, by the way. That's the original science fiction story.
Yeah. It's a scary story about playing God and how it can go horribly wrong. Now imagine, like, I guess Jurassic Park is kind of a modern Frankenstein, because I mean the dinosaurs are contrived from various bits of DNA, just like the monster was contrived from various body parts. As far as creepypasta, probably the Russian sleep experiment.
We've done that one on Midnight Marinara.
Incidentally, I voiced like one of the scientists in there in a very faux Slavic accent, but it's there. I like that one because of the suspension of disbelief, because this happens in sort of a World War II-esque setting, and there was a lot of weird stuff going on at that point on both sides. So I'm gonna let it move on.
All right. Well, obviously, I mentioned. I'm with Ben on Candle Cove for sure. It's one I wanted to adapt for years and then done. But one of my personal favorites is one I did my 13th episode, appropriate enough, is a story called Whimsywood. Is anyone familiar with Whimsywood?
Yes.
Yeah, it's from the same author who wrote the Abandoned by Disney stories. And yeah, and it's a really good one about a kid recollecting terrible road trips with his parents, and he ends up at this weird roadside amusement park. And what I like about it the most is up front, it's creepy without being overtly creepy. It's just weird and disconcerting, and it just gets worse as the story goes on. And I love it. I think it's a fantastic story. It's called Whimsywood, and it's by Slime Beast, who coincidentally I've had on my show a couple times as a guest, so we're friends.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like
no bias.
I was like, you're friends with the guy. You have conversations with him all the time.
It doesn't change the fact that he wrote a really good story.
I'm with him. I am actually a huge fan of Whimsywood and the Abandoned by Disney series as well. Like him, I also have an English degree, and I'm a huge fan of all kinds of literature. My favorite story of all time, or my favorite novel of all time, is Slaughterhouse-Five, which I love with a burning passion, and I'm trying to force him to read it.
As soon as I finish reading Shada, the Doctor Who novel, I'll read it.
That is a great book. That is a fantastic book.
I'm liking it so far.
I really like things that are based on like media, like the video game creepypastas, as long as it's not like something stupid. Like I've read so many Pokemon ones where it's like the unknown spelled out, you will die, or whatever. It's like, okay, we need to give that a rest now. But you know, just something like, I mean, to give like a really mainstream example, I really liked Ben Drowned. But I think there was also one about like King of the Hill, lost episode. That
That sounds awesome. I need to read that like right now.
Me too. Yeah, it was pretty great. And I tend to like things that are more like on the lines of like, again, like this, like the psychological like scare and suspense, like hauntings or things like that. Again, not like something super over the top, because then it's just like it takes you out of that suspension of disbelief and you're like, okay, whatever. But things that are, I guess, like more things that make you feel like uncomfortable and unsettled, and not so much just like straight up gore. Like even with horror movies, I've never been a fan of just like I don't really have a problem with gore. I mean, I read JoJo's, so you know, but it's like instead of being scary, it's just like, okay, that's just like kind of gross. But the psychological scares and hauntings and that kind of stuff is what I'm really into.
Yeah.
There's one I wanted to mention I completely forgot. Is anyone here familiar with the SCP Foundation?
Yeah.
Love this. Like, I read those things and I get freaked out, and I know it's not real, but as there's the one that's it's one more recent series, and it's it's that frequency, and every time there's like a new iteration of the article, and you keep clicking through, and it starts to corrupt, and then it becomes about this holy war, and it's really weird. And then you go through to the last iteration, and it's the same as the opening iteration, which suggests that we're stuck in this loop with this holy battle with this demonic. It sounds stupid, but SCP Project, there's a whole wiki for it. It's fantastic. Anyway, yes, let's take a question over here.
All right. Are there any creepypastas that you wanted to read? Is gore a problem? Are there any that are just too violent to read, or is that a problem with reading?
We read The Origin of Laughing Jack. If the gore comes into play, we're gonna speak our feelings on it, but if it works, we'll read it.
The question is, do we have a problem with like doing gore or violence in the show?
Probably the goriest one we've done in terms of content was the Russian sleep experiment, which we don't hide anything in that one. It's audio, so the thing I like about that is you can censor it yourself in your head if you want. That's the great thing about old audio dramas and radio plays, which we try to do. I always thought the gore descriptions in Russian sleep experiment were a little over the top, so you have to be very careful with it. So to give it that chilling element, I wanted everything to be read very clinically, and very almost like just reports. So the way I handled Russian sleep experiment was add a series of reel-to-reel tapes, like sort of a found audio. And you're actually hearing the scientists talking about what they found, like, you know, the patient had his intestines removed in a forceful manner, and, you know, stuff like that. It's like, when it's run like that, I find it more chilling than if it was just, and blood and guts everywhere.
Detached from it.
Yeah, the detachment makes it more chilling, in my opinion.
Anyone else, or should we take another question?
I think we can take another question.
Okay. Yeah,
back.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you guys have heard of the Earthbound cartridge. It's kind of like a Pokemon version of it, but it's
The Earthbound cartridge?
Where the NPCs would talk back to the player after he would kill mobs of monsters and stuff.
That does sound familiar.
It does sound familiar.
There's a lot of ones that are kind of like that, so I may have. I'm not sure. I don't think I'm familiar with that one.
There's a particular subgenre of creepypasta which basically can be boiled down to, you know that video game you like? Well, it's trying to kill you.
Haunted game.
We've got, just so you know, we've got about 10 minutes left.
Do we? Okay.
Do you want to take a couple more questions?
Yeah, we'll take a couple more.
There's this gentleman here in the glasses who's had his hand up a while.
Yeah.
So my favorite creepypasta is actually the Pokemon one, Buried Alive. I just like the simplicity of it. Have any of you ever tried to write like creepypastas yourself, or?
Oh boy.
Okay. Funny enough.
It turns out he's the author of Jack the Killer.
Jack the Killer is my fan fiction for Jeff the Killer. He's an original character, and he's damaged just like Jeff is.
Do not steal.
They're secret brothers.
Okay, actually, David did write a well-known creepypasta called Grad Night in the Haunted Mansion. Yeah, he's the writer of it. And actually, not too long ago, Nick Barbera, who actually runs the Haunted Mansion show on Mice Chat, and I decided to read it for the 46th anniversary of the Haunted Mansion. And this is something I had been wanting to do a while. I said, David, I really want to read your story so badly. And, he says, yeah, but you can't do it with me. And I'm like, fine, we'll find someone.
I'll do it, why not?
Sure. You want to join in? He actually wrote a sequel
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
I wrote a creepypasta on Twitter, which I didn't do on purpose. It started off because there was this homeless guy yelling outside my apartment building. So I just tweeted, there's a weird homeless guy. I just tweeted, there's a homeless guy yelling outside my apartment building. And then somehow he got into the building. And he wasn't there very long. But I can't remember the exact content of this was like 4 or 5 years ago now. I've moved away from that building since. But I started tweeting that he was shrieking like a banshee. And I could hear him clawing at my door. And then I can't remember exactly what I tweeted. A friend of mine collected the tweets, but I basically, after he was gone at this point, but I wove this narrative of him I could hear him sniffing at the door like a dog. And then I just tweeted a few times that I was scared about it. And then I decided, I'm not going to tweet for 4 days and see what people think have happened. People freaked out. And I just want to stress, I have 2,300 some followers. It's not a lot, but it's enough that a few people sent me emails.
More than me.
Are you okay? Is everything... Did the homeless guy kill you?
The homeless guy killed him.
To which the response is, we're friends on Facebook. I checked into Starbucks yesterday. Come on.
Why don't we go this side?
Oh, real quick, I tried to write a creepypasta once about Super Smash Bros. Melee based on a dream I had that I thought was really scary at the time. And so I wrote it up and I showed it to my friend and he laughed really hard. He's like, yeah, never try to write a creepypasta.
Our favorite creepypasta? Whimsywood.
What's your favorite that you've done for the show?
Oh, for the show? Whimsywood. I don't know, that's an even trickier one because there's a few I'm really proud of. I think Tulpa is actually one of my favorites.
I told you, I was a fan of this show before actually joining it, and I told him I really like Tulpa. Tulpa was so well done.
Kira was in that one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she was.
Oh yeah. What was the one I did with Peyton? What was that one?
Oh, that was what, Red Sky?
Yeah, no, not Red Sky.
Oh, Yo Dude, Do You Own a Doll?
Yes, I love that.
That was our April Fool's Day episode. It was a parody of The Break.
Yeah.
Speaking of Red Sky, I'm reminded of an old, a short poem that farmers in the UK use for their crops. It's red sky at night, shepherd's delight, blue sky at night, day.
That's beautiful. It's a work of art.
Alright, let's see. Thank you.
I guess my favorite creepypastas are the video game ones or the Lost TV show ones. Are there any creepypastas you've ever heard of that actually are true?
Well, Kettle Cove is a real television show now, so it's retroactively become true.
There's a few that are out there that I don't know, it's hard to say. There's a couple out there that are presented as creepypasta, and then you find out are true, like the hotel where they found the body of a woman in the water.
Oh, yeah.
That one turned out to be true. Like they have no idea how she got in there. There was no point of entry. No one discovered it until someone said the water was coming out weird, and then they found this body, and it was like, how did she get there? That one freaks me out. Okay.
What was that doctor we were talking about that she voiced for?
Oh, that was Tulpa.
Tulpa?
Tulpa's the name of the story.
Tulpa.
Tulpa.
Do you want to spell that?
T-U-L-P-A.
T-U-L-P-A.
Alright, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we want to take...
I can take,
We have 7 minutes left. We want to do one more quick one?
We can do it. I think we can do one or two more. So, and there's two right there. Perfect.
My question is this: a lot of people always get their stories expired because something happened to them that was the creepiest thing. They're like, I want to get into the creepy stuff. So, what was the weirdest or the creepiest thing that ever happened besides the homeless guy? Also, either it be a ghost, something happened when you were a little kid, but something creepy that happened in your life that
Okay, this should be fun.
I can answer this. So there is one point where I was with my family where I was probably about 9 years old, and I was with my family, and my little sister, she was 7 at the time, and she was really small. My mom was able to pick her up until she was 10 years old. This is how tiny she was. She's now my height, so. There was a point we were getting out of the elevator, but for some reason she stayed, and the elevator closed on her, and we freaked out. We didn't know where she was going, so we hopped on the elevator. We're like, oh my god, and we just pressed a button. Luckily, we found her. She was standing with a man. He was an African-American man with a gray coat, and my mom said, they turned around to say thank you, and he disappeared out of thin air. Like, and I remember seeing him, and all of a sudden he was gone. Like, we said she was going to thank him, and he was gone. My mom likes to think he was a guardian angel or something, but who knows? That was a creepy moment in my life.
I'll try to keep it short, because we are.
Yeah, we're up against it.
We're getting close here. There was a Halloween night one year. I used to live in the San Jacinto Mountains, and instead of, yep, thank you. I used to live in the San Jacinto Mountains, and one year I was like, there's all these like Native American petroglyphs up there, like on the rock. So one time my mom and I, on Halloween night, we decided we were gonna go just sit near one in the dark and just see what happened. And we did, and we sat around for a while. It was fun. It was fun. It was actually really surprisingly peaceful. It was like being out in nature, but it had that kind of fun, spooky element to it. But the thing was, we definitely got the impression we weren't alone there. Like the impression, and then and I swear I saw something, someone, I don't know.
There's
It was pretty
someone on the wing, something on the wing, you.
Turned out it was Ben.
Yeah.
But when we got back to the car, we both were like, did you get it? Like, and we didn't talk during it. We were just sitting in the dark, and like, I was trying to kind of just open myself to whatever was around, just you know, trying to see what was there. And we get to the car, like, did you get an impression of a woman just now? Like, yeah, I did. But we didn't make this to each other. It's like, a woman? Yeah, like there was some female presence with us while we were at those petroglyphs that night. So that was one of those. It's creepy when I think about it, but also like I wasn't scared, which was a weird thing.
Oh, no, after you. Yeah.
So, some odd years ago, my great-grandfather passed away, and he lived in that house for over 50 years, completely paid off, so we thought we could rent it out. So, my great-grandfather passed away in that house, surrounded by his family, best way to go, surrounded by your loved ones. So, they needed somebody to stay in the house until it was nicely refurbished and marketable. Guess where the only bed in the house was? In the very spot he passed away, obviously. But the strange thing is that there was no, like, I wasn't scared by it. You know, it's kind of creepy, oh, I'm in the same place that somebody passed away, because me and my great-grandfather had such a great relationship that it was actually calming to be there, like actually sleep in that spot. It's really weird, and it kind of creeped me out at first, but when you're super close to somebody, that sort of thing just, I don't know. That was natural.
I have a quick one, actually.
Okay.
This is going to be it, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah. Because you've got something to talk about too, right?
Well, we don't have to talk about that. We've got like 2 minutes left.
All right, go for it.
So a year ago this week, my mother passed away. She lived in England. I had raised a GoFundMe I couldn't afford to go back and visit her, and it had been like 5.5 years since I'd last seen her. And my family and friends and some fans like pulled together, raised $1,600, got me a plane ticket, so I could go out there and surprise her for her birthday. Her birthday is September 6th. I flew out on the 2nd, I arrived on the 3rd, a family friend picked me up from the airport, took me to my sister's home. We were there for 30 minutes before we got the phone call from a paramedic saying that my mother had been found dead in her home. Now, that's a shitty story. That's a horrible story, but and it's upsetting that to think that as I was getting on the plane, she was slipping away. Like, she just sat down, fell asleep, and didn't wake up again. But my mom's always been slightly spooky, and the entirety of my family is convinced that she knew I was coming, and she held on as long as she could so that I would be there with my family. And what was supposed to be a 2-week vacation to spend time with my mother, who I haven't seen for several years, ended up being a 1-month vacation, a 1-month stay to kind of help plan a funeral and be there for my family and friends. So, yeah, thank you. Anyway, I think we should probably wrap this shindig up.
That seems good. I mean, I saw that running out of time makes me sad, but we don't want to press it. If you have any questions for us, please come and find us after the show. We'd be happy to talk to you. If you want to find any of us online, please find me online. All the information is right there. You can find me on the Venue Network, my email.
VenueNetwork.com/Midnight Marinara. Check it out.
And thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Thanks so much.